Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of A Conversation With, where Charles and I have decided to talk with as many people as we can to give you as much information as humanly possible. The thing that remains true on every single episode has been this is uncharted, meaning there is no blueprint for how we manage this. There's no crystal ball. All of our guests have said basically the same thing, that as we continue to try to navigate this thing, we're trying to rely on situations of our past to help us understand how we're going to deal with the future. I want to welcome our guest, David Hicks. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. David, I just want to let you run with the opening statement of how's things going from a business, personal, franchise standpoint. How are you guys navigating this storm?
Well, thank you, Nick. And I tell you what, it is a unique time for us. It's kind of a crazy time. Personally, everything's going well. We kind of different. We've got all of our staff, our support staff working from home, just like most everybody else in the country is. It's an interesting time for our franchises. We are kind of a different business because our franchisees are all, our 1,100 franchises all over the country. They're entrepreneurs and they're learning how to do the real estate business. I don't know if people know who we are as Homevestors. They don't know the name Homevestors, but they've probably seen the billboards. We buy ugly houses. And, it's kind of a different time of buying houses, but surprisingly, our franchises have adapted. They've learned to do the business. So overall, they're all doing well.
David, I'm curious, non-franchise related, what are you anticipating with the residential/rental real estate markets that you're seeing?
It's interesting because right now it's interesting what we're seeing because all of our franchises are selling everything. Every house is selling. I think there's a lot of different reasons for that currently because many people with the COVID-19, the listings are down in residential real estate. Our franchisees, and I think it's probably natural because people don't want a lot of people traipsing through their house. They don't want people coming looking at their houses, and so they're pulling listings off. What that means, if houses are vacant, they're all selling because there are a lot of people looking for houses to buy houses. So what happens when things loosen up? I would expect the real estate would slow down a little bit. Different, and I was around with Homevestors. We've been in business since 1996, so we've seen a lot of ups and downs. This is different than the 2008 and 9 recession, the Great Recession, because it was led by real estate. Coming into this, there really is a scarcity of real estate. They have not been building houses at the same level we've had production of new families. And so I would expect that, yes, there'll be a slowdown, but it may not be as bad as a lot of people expect.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting point of view because it's a much different economic situation, which I think it actually creates a lot of optimism for business owners that some are saying, as soon as we're back to work, things are going to go somewhat back to normal is their mindset. But still, there's still a lot of unknowns.
There is. A lot of it depends on how long it is before we go back to work. And that's the big thing. I think our franchises are able to function in this environment where a lot of people can't. And so a lot of people, their income has stopped. So a lot of it depends on how much of a slowdown will depend on how long it is before the majority of people are back to work.
So, David, let's get to the heart. As we've been speaking with brands, the question is the upside or the opportunity as we go through these processes, right? And everyone So before we started, you just made a comment and you said, hey, this is going to make us better. So how is this going to make Homevestors better? How are you internalizing this? How's your team internalizing it? What are going to be the markers as you come out that where you guys are getting better?
Great question. And it's interesting going through this for a second time, Charles, because back in 08 and 09 with that recession, we were focused inward. How do we as a corporation survive and get through this? Now we understand that our survival and our strength is not based on what we do, but based on the franchises. And so we have really focused on how we support our franchises, how we help them. And so it has helped us. We've adapted to the technology. It's amazing the different things we have done that helped our franchises. And our franchise are entrepreneurs. The thing about a franchise organization, the people join the franchise because they want their own deal. They want to have their own business. And so they are creative and they found solutions. Our franchise have found ways to buy houses virtually, doing FaceTime and doing other things. They have trained each other, and we've used technology and how to help them learn from each other what's working, how you go buy a house when you can't walk through it with the seller, how you go evaluate a house. And it's changed a lot of our business. And I think a lot of those things will adapt even coming out of when we get back to the normal, whatever the new normal is.
Paolo, I want to see if this worked. Did we get you on now?
Yeah, I apologize for the technical difficulties earlier.
Hey, we're all trying to fake it till we make it in this time. So we'd love to kick it over to you too. Tell it, like, one of the things that we're starting to dive into is the pivoting of businesses. So how are you guys navigating the storm that exists, and how are you guys pivoting as well?
So for us, it's just a matter of, we're a fitness franchise, right? So our revenue model is a subscription model. So with that, we've felt to serve our members, it wouldn't be fair to charge them their monthly subscription while we're closed. So we're not getting any revenue in the time being. Our focus has transitioned over to reducing our expenses. So our guidance to our franchisees has been trying to manage their expenses, whether it be abating or deferring rent, utilities, trying to take advantage of some of these government programs that are coming out to get additional cash infusion to manage the crisis.
So I'm curious, was it a difficult decision in terms of suspending the monthly subscription, or was that something forced, or how did you guys come about it?
No, I mean, nothing is ever forced to our franchisees. It's a decision that they come to based off of our recommendations. However, we did strongly feel that it would be a long-term benefit to do that, to continue to have good faith with our member base, as opposed to trying to charge them during something where they're experiencing hardship or considering the circumstances, they're not able to take advantage of the services that we're offering at the moment. So it's more of a long-term play as opposed to anything else.
David, obviously you guys have been around for a while. You've owned the branding of the billboard, which you mentioned, so that we buy ugly houses. How are you seeing franchisees get away from the statement of this is how we've always done things and say it's time to adapt to make sure that we can protect the business on the other side of it?
It's interesting. It's really been very easy for the most part because we can't do it the way we've always done it. And so it almost has forced us to adapt. Now, we do have some franchises that have struggled with that. Some of them panic and say, we can't do anything because we can't go see houses. But for the most part, most of them have said, we've got sellers calling us. They have a house they need to sell. Many times they need the money. They need to get rid of this house, or they need to get rid of the expenses, and our franchises need to find a way to help them. And so, as entrepreneurs, Americans in general, I think, are very creative, and they'll find a way to make things happen. And we've got a great franchise base that they have all adapted in a very good way to the new technology and the new ways of how to go help somebody. And the reality is, if they come in with the attitude, I'm going to help this seller, then they'll look and find a way to help them.
So, gentlemen, I mean, in the fitness industry, what are you planning as a major shift on the other side of this, right? So, assumptions that you had before COVID-19, maybe some new assumptions post, and the opportunity for at least your fitness brand.
Yeah, I mean, what we're projecting is that, we've received tons of feedback from our member base, and a majority of them are chomping at the bit to be able to resume activities, right? To get out of the household and be able to enjoy working out again. And for us, we're a basketball-focused fitness concept. So, our members, if you look around the communities, they've taken down backboards within their park systems because people are dying to get out and play basketball and work out again. So we're hopeful that when we get to the other side of this, that we'll ride that wave of people eager to get back to their routine.
With both of you, I mean, one of the things that we're seeing from these conversations, which Charles and I started having these really the week after shutdown. So we're talking about March 14th is when we started having these things. And it's interesting to watch the tone of the discussion. March 14th, it's very optimistic. This thing's going to go away. I'm still going out to eat, whatever. We get into the next week, and it's like, this is getting real. Maybe I should take this seriously. We continue on, and now like the seriousness has increased significantly. So we've watched the stories of franchisors go from high optimism to bracing for impact to now trying to discover what is the brand going to look like on the other side. And one of the things that I appreciate that has started to come out is also the honesty of the stress points that businesses are feeling, that it's almost okay to be vulnerable right now to say, we're looking at layoffs, or, we're struggling with our franchisee support, because now it's good because we've taken down our defense mechanisms, our armor, and now we're getting to open conversation. So for both of you, whoever wants to go first, I would appreciate it. What's keeping you up at night? What concerns you most about this? And how do you plan on addressing that as an entrepreneur, or as a business owner?
Well, for us, we're a relatively young franchise. So we had several new franchisees come into our system that just started getting off the ground. So, our biggest concern would probably be, just regaining the kind of excitement and momentum that they had going into this prior to this crisis. And on the other side of this, what that process will look like. Another thing that's kept us up at night, and thankfully we've had franchisees that are extremely resilient and resourceful, that have pursued opportunities again to reduce their expenses. The main line item for us is rent and their equipment loans. So again, for them, their resourcefulness has made it easier for us on the franchisor level to be able to rest easy at night. So We do what we can as far as just reviewing all the information out there that we have available to provide them resources and guidance the best way possible.
And for us, we have grown significantly since the Great Recession. In fact, 2009 started a string where we have grown for 12 straight years, from 165 franchises then to over 1,100 today. We've got a lot of really good experienced franchises. And what I worry about, much like the other, is the new franchises that haven't been through something like this. Some of them, the young ones that haven't really experienced, even in their life, some kind of crisis like this. Some of us have been old enough to remember 9/11 and remember several crises in our life, where there's the Great Recession. Some of our franchises went through hurricanes down in Houston and blizzards in the Northwest, and they understand on the backside of it is opportunity. A lot of the new guys don't understand that yet. So what we try to do is help with our experienced ones, help them show what they've learned from that experience going through it, and how that sometimes you have to get through the struggle, through the hardship to get to the good side on the backside of it. But there is opportunity coming, and there is even opportunity now if you find a way to overcome some of the obstacles.
David,
Charles, can I call out two quick things there, because I think they're important.
Sure.
And then, sorry to interrupt.
No.
So, Paolo, you said basically re-engage the excitement of the start. Like, how excited were franchisees when they get involved? And I think that's an excellent point that franchisors need to be thinking about, especially for new franchisees, because you go through a discovery day, you've done your research, you've made the decision, this is the brand. Unfortunately, timing may have not worked out in your favor, and you might have opened at the wrong time. So I think it's a great thing that franchisors should take away, is start thinking about how you create the re-engagement of excitement in those franchisees, and figure out a way to give them enough scaffolding so that you can protect them and make sure that they're not disenchanted when things come back around. We've seen some models. You're doing pre-sales on a pre-opening. Like, how do you start pre-sales now for post-coronavirus crisis? So I think that was a great statement. And then you talk about the resourcefulness of franchisees. I think this is a big thing that's happening throughout our industry, that franchisors are no longer afraid to say, hey, franchisees, tell me how you're resourceful, because there's a lot of intelligent human beings as a franchise brand that you get to be connected to. So I love that partnership is happening in these discussions, and you're able to say, look, we don't have to handhold you on everything. You're resourceful human beings. And then, David, your statement about really the foundation for bad days, that in your career you've seen some really, really bad days. It's like, I was going to say, it's like flying. You're really scared to fly for the first time, and after you do it, you realize there's going to be, in most cases, a success on the end of that flight. Or like a bee sting, that you're afraid of getting stung by a bee and you get stung, and it hurts, but you move on from it. That, maybe a silver lining, not that we're even in a place of talking about silver linings, is the fact that a little bit of experience here for newer entrepreneurs will help them navigate the rest of their business. So you lean back on that foundation, and maybe you plan a little bit differently for the rainy day. Maybe you save a little bit more cash in the bank for the next time because you've gone through this one. So I think wonderful statements out of both of you, and obviously I appreciate that. So, sorry, Charles, to jump in there, but I wanted to call out those three things.
So I'll respond to that. And I think what you just said is exactly right. People that anytime you go through a tough time, at the back end of it, when you survive and when you even thrive on the backside of it, it gives you great confidence. And that's one of the things our franchises have gone through, the different experiences they have. And every franchise is going to have a period of bad times. It just right now, a whole bunch of them have it all at once because it's from an outside source. But the reality is, every time you learn to thrive on the backside of it, it makes you stronger. And it makes your business better too, because you cut out some of the fat that you have, and you learn what the how to survive on less maybe lean times, and then when the good times come, you're prepared for it, and you learn to sock more money away so that you're preparing for the next troubled times, because they will come.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, what we're finding is that our franchisees are finding that this is validating their choice to go through the franchise route as opposed to going in it alone, right? Because they get to pool information from other people within their franchise system to gather, information on the best course of action to take to weather the storm.
Paolo, so you're an emerging brand, great concept, right?
Right.
What's your biggest concern? Like, what are you, like, things are going well. We hit this bump. What's the biggest concern you guys have getting through this? And I'm sure part of it is health of your franchisees, cash flow, capital. And what's the opportunity? Like, is there a way for you guys to leap ahead after this? Are you rethinking whether it's your franchise offering, your relationship with franchisees, legal relationships? I mean, are there any advantages on the other side that you guys are focusing on?
Yeah, I briefly touched on it. I think the biggest advantage that we're finding as of the moment is that validation amongst our Zs that, hey, this is why I got into the franchise model in the first place, because we do get that support during this time. We're not just on an island on our own. So, it just gives us another opportunity to earn their trust and build our working relationship with them. As far as challenges that we foresee, I mean, we were fearful in the beginning that we may have some casualties based off of, we didn't have any information in the beginning of this crisis on how people would respond or, what we would be able to do. But now that we've gone through about 3 weeks of this, we've seen that, again, the resilience of our franchisees and the resourcefulness of them. And, we're very optimistic that we'll come out this on the other side, having built a stronger network amongst each other. And then on the growth side, we hopefully facilitate that we'll have opportunities of additional franchisees coming into the system, more likely to invest, considering it's more of a buyer's market in terms of, for us, one of the biggest challenges is site selection, being that we need a large space for our fitness club. So we're seeing that we're still continuing to engage with potential investors out there. So, we remain optimistic. We understand that there's challenges and all that, but we've seen that within this three-week period, we've continued to build that community, and so we're hopeful.
And I apologize, I have a slight delay on my feed. And I appreciate the community stuff. I mean, but if I'm going to be candid with all brands, right?
Sure.
Community isn't a part of it, you shouldn't be in the game, right? So it's community plus. But what I do love, Paolo, is one of your weaknesses, not a weakness, but a challenge, was real estate, big space. And now all of a sudden, I think one upside on the other side of this is that you've now alleviated a big burden on your real estate needs, or we're about to see a change in that. I think that's a super positive element, because if you made your system work before this crisis, now you're in a different landscape, new market for employees, new market for real estate, new market for, reduced rent on square footage. So I think that's a compelling story for you guys.
Right. No, agreed. So we'll see how it progresses beyond this. But again, we remain, we try to look at the bright side of things.
David, I have a super secret question for you guys. So you're a well-established brand. You guys know what you're doing. You dominate your space. What's your super secret strategy for really just crushing it on the other side of this? Things that you would never tell anyone else, but how you're just going to completely
I'm curious to know.
Since it's just between us, right?
This is it.
That's
David,
right. And there's really no secret to it. The real focus that we have is making sure our franchises. We do have a brand. We have 52 trademarks around our ugly houses, and so right on the back side of this, our franchises are chomping at the bit for when things do open up to advertise and make sure and build that brand even bigger. The brand isn't the key. The key is the leads that come off of that. Because what makes our brand different? People join us sometimes for our systems. They join us for all the support we get. They stay with us for two things. One is the leads, because they get our advertising, our marketing makes that phone ring. And the second thing they stay with us is the organization, the people that we have, being able to learn from others, because there is no place else that a person that wants to buy real estate, that wants to get into as be a real estate investor, can come to a meeting and hear from hundreds of other people that are franchises that bought literally hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of houses. And so that's the reason they stay with us. So we're excited to go leverage that to even bigger things.
if we staying with that point, I think probably almost very few people know the Homevestors name. Everyone knows the We Buy Ugly Homes. I think for Homevestors is probably, other than the iconic brands of McDonald's or whatnot, without mitigating or minimizing what you guys do, but I think Homevestors is a prime example of a company that wins because of its brand. Very few companies have been defined by its brand. Think about it. The decision to come up, whatever that decision was, whoever designed that logo made Homevestors tens of millions of dollars. And it could have been a 30-minute conversation difference of, I don't like this, let's go with something conventional. And it's a completely different company.
Absolutely. In fact, the founder, Ken D'Angelo, he actually took it to a marketing company. They told him it was a stupid idea. They shouldn't use ugly houses. People don't react to that. And he did it anyway, and it worked. And so sometimes it is having an idea you're confident in and building on that, because people, it's amazing. People don't call the ugly house people because they have a nice house. They call us because they have a house that needs repair, and we can go help them with that house. So,
but it just blows me away, right? So, and the value becomes your network, your marketing. So that's where franchisees, they get the leads. So a company built around a brand. And one of the issues I have, and I'm a franchise lawyer, so I love our logo, right? But there's so many brands that are doing well, but could probably be doing a lot better with the right brand and the right logo. And people think that's nonsense or an afterthought. And what I love about Homevestors is you're an example of a company, one decision away, one logo difference, you may not exist right now.
That's exactly right. And it helps us through times like these, because the reality is when people have that house that they know they can't sell to a realtor, they don't want to sell to a realtor, they don't want people traipsing through the realtor, they think of us. And it becomes the more our franchise advertise, the more people know it, and the more they know it, the more calls we get, and the more houses we buy, and it just feeds on itself.
So David, could you guys license it to me? As a law firm, we'll use, we help prevent ugly franchisors. Like we'll agree now, $10 a month license fee.
Well, I don't know about that license fee. Everything's for sale. Isn't that the way it works?
I think one of the coolest things that if someone's watching this from an as an outsider, the reality is we talk about the bee sting or needing to have some sort of view on what life is like on the other side, and you take a Homevestors that is in a segment that is connected to some of the biggest pain points of 2008, and you talk about the growth that happens out of here. I mean, every emerging franchisor is looking for those stories of a franchisor that was emerging or mid-emerging and skyrocketed. And you know, right here we're seeing an example. We're seeing an example of a franchisor that's weathering the storm, that has a good idea and a good brand and wants to get to the other side, and it's doing his best, the scaffolding and support to the franchisees. And then you have another one that just that lived it, that went through 2008 and said, we got to the other side and we took off. I think that's a beautiful part of today's discussion, is you can see what it's going to be like if you can stay strong and stay confident and have the mindset that on the other side of this, if we can close the gap as a brand, whatever that gap is, there is an opportunity to grow. And secondly, the truth is, in 2008, same truth here, we don't know what the other side looks like. We don't know the date. We don't know the timing. We don't know what happens to all these loans, all this cash that was printed in the basement. What happens to that? I mean, there's so many unknowns. But David's been through it, and Paolo's starting to navigate it, and it's pretty cool to see that in real time.
Absolutely. And that's part of what we have to be, is flexible. We've got to be able to adapt to whatever the situation is. And that's one of the things we talk to our franchises right now about, that it's interesting that whether in Chicago or New Jersey or wherever, their situation's different than it is here in Dallas. And they have to adapt to whatever it is currently and figure out how they can function within the restrictions that are on it right now.
David,
and one comment from our audience. I'll just pop it up on the screen. And again, nobody has a crystal ball, but there it is. Our challenge at Just Between Friends is, when will it end? And you know,
yeah, so I mean, we wish somebody had a crystal ball, but
I've got one, but it's a little cloudy right now.
So you know what? What fascinates me is, I think Nick probably knows the John Hopkins website and statistics better than anyone. None of us know. I wishful thinking here, but I'm thinking we start easing up come May 1. So I'm going to be positive thought about that. And then maybe I think come June 1, we're all going to be up and running, because I'm super positive today. But, you know, it'll be interesting. So we don't know. David, on the other side, whenever this happens, do your franchise sales materials change? Does your value proposition change? And I'd say for Paolo too, I mean, does anything change in on your franchise sales website, in your materials, the conversations, discovery days?
It's already changing. And let me give you an example of that. We've sold a dozen franchises since this happened. And so we're putting together how we're going to train them without them coming and sitting through a week training in Dallas. And so we're starting a virtual training for new franchises and learning how to train them. And we're going to have them come do part of it online, do it virtually, get started, and then come back to training and come in whenever things clear up, but it's safe to travel. But we're not waiting. Our franchise need to figure out, it's interesting. We're buying over 1,000 houses a month. Last month we're down. We only bought 800. Now, but we bought 800 in the middle of all this. Okay. Our franchise, I was checking already this month, the first 7 days this month, they sold over 20-something million dollars worth of real estate. And so they're functioning within the restrictions. In a week, they do that. So they're on track to have a good month this month in the midst of it. So they're figuring out how to adapt. And just like anybody else, the first week or two, some of them were scared and said, what do I do? And I don't know if I can function, and I don't know how I can do this. And then suddenly they say, okay, I get a call. How do I go buy this person's house that needs me to buy the house? So we're figuring it out.
Paolo, anything change in your sales approach, your materials, value you focused on?
I mean, our value proposition is probably going to remain the same to any interested franchisee. However, for operationally speaking, obviously, the thing that we can control is, for us being a fitness gym, is definitely our cleaning procedures. But outside of that, our business is a fitness franchise and basketball. So as far as any kind of ramifications that we may get out of this, we're not too sure of.
Yeah, no, and Paolo, I get it, right? I mean, I'm asking the question. I mean, because it's interesting to me, and I guess it's just I guess your team's gonna be focused on all the fundamentals that got you here so far, right? And you're gonna stick to that, and why would you change the course? And I get that. I mean, what's interesting to me is, I think, as an emerging brand, first, credit to you and your team for getting where you're at. It's not easy, especially with a large box. I think it's great too that you're focused. It's not just a fitness concept; it's basketball focused, and so you have that community there. So I think that's smart. And from what I'm saying, I would just suggest, I think your brand, I think PickUp USA, with the right decisions, is going to have more opportunity in a couple of months than it would have had before this happened. I think brokers, I think you'll have potentially a window where you can engage brokers and buyers in a new light that maybe they wouldn't have paid attention to your brand beforehand. Not that they shouldn't, but I think there's going to be a rebalancing where emerging brands can compete with the more established brands right now.
No, I completely agree. That's what our sales team is focused on, right? Repivoting to, focus on advantages and opportunities that will come out of this. For me, my department is just strictly focusing on the operational side of our franchise. So I leave that up to them to focus on how to pivot in terms of sales.
Yeah, so as we take the final turn here, I would love to closing statements. I want to add, Paolo, let's start with you.
As far as supporting the franchisees, which is the topic of this, is just as constant communication for us. Making sure that we touch base with them in a systemized fashion, so they know that we're here to support them, and give them guidance on all the information that we're gathering, and just be as forthright as possible. Don't give them any projections that are overly optimistic, or don't be doom and gloom, but just be matter of fact and control what you can control in the time being, and that's been our approach.
Charles?
Yeah, I'm just fascinated. I appreciate David giving me a license, but I'm fascinated, unrelated to COVID. Homevestors, I'm just fascinated with the fact that it's a clear example of how important a brand is and how important that messaging is. And I would challenge that, there's a number of franchise brands out there, and we talk about pivoting and whatnot, and we're talking about COVID and all this other stuff, but I would also take a moment to reflect on your brand positioning. And also, if now is a time to reevaluate your branding as we go through this. And again, it has nothing to do with anything we're talking about other than look at Homevestors, which is I mean, I think should be in a marketing book, if it's not already, in colleges as an example of perfect branding, perfect symmetry between consumers and messaging, and the power of a brand. And I think a lot of, especially in the emerging end, I think a lot of brands are leaving opportunity on the table with their logo, their messaging, and their designs.
And David?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was thinking about the question you have, when is this going to be over? And that's probably the question everybody asks. And, if we all had this crystal ball, we knew that. I think the reality is we've got to learn to deal with where we are right now and be prepared, because at some point this will be over. And we need to come through this as unscathed as we can, both as a franchisor and as a franchisee. So that on the backside of this, we're prepared for the opportunity that is there. Because I believe for all of us, what we learn here, what will make us better here, that we are excited because the last big recession we went through started our run of 12 years. So I can't wait to see the run that we're going to be on now at the backside of this. And what we're helping all our people be prepared for is be prepared for that run, because the opportunity is coming. And so put yourself in the best place so that you are ready to take advantage of it.
Love it. And my final thoughts are this. When will be over? I mean, I'm thinking about that question a lot. I'm looking at data. I'm creating predictability, and I'm not creating predictability for when it will be over. I'm creating predictability for when we can start seeing the dip come down, because then I can start advising some brands to maybe change a little bit of their approach. But the reality is, I don't think this will ever be over, and this is another opportunity for an event that will have impacted our lives. This is something that impacts the entire world. For anybody that was alive during September 11th, that still has impact on our lives. 2008, whoever went through that couldn't get a job, was unemployed, was fired. That affects our lives. So the reality, this is going to always affect our lives. It's what you do with it and how you turn it into fuel. And I also think the last takeaway that I think is just super, super valuable, and this is the benefit of having Homevestors on here. We buy ugly houses. That is the most honest statement possible. And when you're honest with your brand and just say what it is, sometimes that's the magic in this stuff. And when you carry that same honesty over to your franchisees and you say, look, I don't have all the, we're here to help you and we want to navigate this together. I think being vulnerable, which when you say we buy ugly houses, that is a vulnerable statement, but it is what it is, and we're going to embrace it. And when you tell your franchisees, you know what, I don't have the answer to that question, it's actually okay. And that's what's going to come out of this, is when we're as honest as possible as human beings. I think we have a shot as a community, as individuals, to really have success on the other side of this. I want to thank our two guests today. You guys have been wonderful. Appreciate you guys coming on. I'm just going to throw this up here. Make sure you go visit our Facebook group. We're going to be working on a virtual happy hour there. So make sure you join the Mastermind for more information. Again, thank you to our guests. Wonderful conversation. Guys, I wish you the best of luck as you continue this journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.